right, even though everybody isn't here, I think we're going to go ahead and get started because, as usual, we have a lot to cover. So, for your warm-up today, I'm going to hand out some cards, and each person will have one, and I want you to walk around the room and try to find the other people that you believe have cards that are related to your cards. And once you find all your group members, there will be 4 people in each group. Sit down and decide what it is that links you. So, for example, some of the cards are about error correction. Some of the cards are about teacher talk. Some of the cards are about using visual aids. So you want to try to find 3 other people whose cards have something in common with yours and see what rule connects those 4 cards. Okay? This might take a while. You're probably going to want to talk to almost everybody before you make a final decision, because until you hear them all, you might not know which one is most closely related to yours. Okay? Does everybody understand what they're going to do? Yeah. Okay. And when you're ready, sit down. Okay? But until then, you'll be standing up to walk around and talk to other people.
What kind of questions do I supposed to say?
You don't have to say any questions. You can read the cards to each other and decide if you think you are similar or different. Okay, and you want to find the 3 other people who are most similar to you. Okay? Alright. Happy New Year.
Está todo mundo sentado, você está
So, once you talk to everybody at your table, you'll have to get up and talk to other people. The point is to stand up and walk around, not to sit.
Let me read this to see if there's any but my students are working years with you. I walk around there to check on them. I try to give back
organize the ideas of the
Yeah.
And dynamics and what's yours?
Giovanni, I bet it will seem easy once you find someone who is similar. You found one, okay.
Isn't it?
It's the same approach or the same
Same idea, same approach.
Like, you could group them together because it's a similar idea or approach, yeah.
I think we are missing here. I think 5 more. Yeah?
Depends what kind of room you give me. There are multiple possible answers. There's a
Estou ouvindo palavras chamães aqui.
I'm helping you a little. You're lost.
Warm up. Warm up.
Who's got the feedback? Warm up. Who's it for? Absolutely, they know 100% they are for. Yes? Okay. Who else is absolutely 100% sure they have all 4 members correct? Let me tell you something right now. Okay? There really isn't just one correct answer. Okay? There are a lot of interrelated concepts here. So, even if you're not absolutely sure, you make the answer correct by being able to link the things together. Okay? So whether you believe you're not sure, what my suggestion is to get with the people you think are the closest and then see if you can make a link between your cards. Okay? Because there is not just one correct answer.
Oh my God.
So if you have not already figured out the thing that links you, please do so now. But I'm pretty sure you guys already know what links you. You know what links you? You know what links you? Yes? You know what links you? Yes? 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 Okay. So what I will ask you to do is stand up and just read what's on your card because all 28 of them are different. And then I'll ask the group to share what they believe the link is. Okay? Now, some of you, when you hear it, you might think, hey, wait a minute, that's my link. In my mind, when I did this, there were 7 different things. Okay? But just like with lots of the things we've been reading, there's always a different interpretation and a different way to think about something. So really, there's no wrong answer. So if you made a group of 3 or 5, okay, the world isn't going to end as long as you can show me that how you think all of your cards link together. Okay? So we'll start with the front group since they were first to be finished. So each person read what's on your card. then I guess whoever's last can tell us what you believe the link to be.
I often show pictures when I teach new vocabulary.
I use video and images to help engage my students in the lesson.
I use pictures and graphics to bring the outside world into my classroom.
I use graphic organizers to enhance concepts.
Okay, and what links you all?
Visuals.
Visuals. Okay, so there's we're all about using visuals in the classroom. Good. How about this group in the front?
I sometimes.
Yes. Go ahead.
Sometimes I teach rules, and sometimes I allow students to discover patterns.
Okay.
I sometimes give homework that introduces a new concept. I ask students to read first and then discuss in class later.
I use homework as an extra opportunity for students to practice skills learned that day in class.
I give some sort of feedback on homework assignments.
On some homework assignments, I give written comments to the students.
Okay. And what do you believe the link to be?
Homework? No, we teach the class the rules, and then we can give the homework, and they can discover. We can allow the students to discover new patterns. We can correct.
So patterns and feedback.
Yes.
Patterns and feedback. Okay. Good. What about this group over here?
I give formal and informal feedback to my students. I try to give constructive feedback to all students, even though it's sometimes difficult to do so. Instead of correcting outright, I sometimes rephrase something in the correct way.
There are times when I do not correct my students because I want them to focus on fluency.
Okay. And what was your link?
Error correction and feedback.
Error correction and feedback, and specifically some of them were teacher talk, the things the teachers say to try to reframe errors. Good. Middle?
I start. I think about group dynamics when I pair a group of students together.
Group dynamics? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
I put my students in pairs. Each pair, there's one strong student and one weaker student.
Okay.
When my students are working in pairs or groups, I walk around the room to check on them.
I create a classroom environment in which we are all working together toward a common goal.
Okay.
I assign roles to group members to help keep the group in task.
And what do you think the link is?
Working together.
Working groups,
Pairs.
Pairs.
Okay. All right. There's one that I might really try to push into another category, but you think, which one? I would put Carla in another group, maybe too, but you guys had a reason? That means you're correct, so it's okay. Now,
maybe it could
well,
be
let's see what they say. Let's see what they say.
I often ask my students to expand on their answers or discuss them further.
I expect all students to take an active part in discussion and classwork.
I allow the students to take an active role in deciding what and how we study.
And what do you think they're doing?
Active role.
The students having an active role, student engagement and discussion. Yeah, I think maybe, but
I think that I could do it in both.
both. With that?
Yes. My students sometimes have a hard time focusing during the first 5-10 minutes of class. So I like to give them something relaxing to get ready.
I try to link my warm-ups to the main theme of the class.
I start class at the correct time with a short activity. It helps my students to realize they need to arrive on time.
I use a warm-up to get my students in the right mindset for learning English.
Okay, and what was your link?
Warm up.
Warm up. Okay, using some sort of warm up activity. Good. Okay, and last.
I sometimes give students a choice of activities to complete.
I try to ask questions that have multiple possible answers as opposed to one correct answer.
I try to build the skills like inference and analysis into my questions.
Okay, and what do you think yours was?
The choice
captioning. So all of these things, plus there were a couple extras in as well, I'm sure you probably recognized as the items you read about in the chapter for today. So this is another warm-up, and we're going to talk about someone named Robert Marzano. He's not in this book. Some of his strategies, but also most of the activities we've done where you're pairing or grouping are things called Hagen strategies. I've posted them all to the website so that you can see them. But one of the things we're going to talk about is that identifying similarities and differences, which is what you were being asked to do in this activity here, is one of the ways that students acquire the most information. They seem to retain a lot when they're forced or asked to recall or identify similarities and differences. So that's going to kind of start us moving into the discussion of the things in this chapter. You can go back to your regular seat.
Are you going to collect?
I will, but when you do.
Okay.
I know some of you sent me a copy of your syllabus via email, but if you have a paper copy to give me, I don't know if any of you do or not, if you could just get that out and set it on your table, I will collect it at some point. I don't want to take the time to do it now. If I forget, please just remind me at the end of class.
Nicole?
Yes.
I didn't hear.
Oh, if you have a copy of your syllabus to give me,
Yes, I didn't do it.
Okay.
I do it next week.
Yes, that's fine. Okay. Okay. You can also email it to me. Email
But
is
it is
totally
something
fine.
simple like this that
Okay, then I just, so if you have it, just set it on the table and I will collect it at some point, okay? If you haven't done it yet, it's okay, or you can email it to me. Some people already did email it to me. That's fine. Okay, so I just don't like to talk over people. It stresses my voice and it also makes me feel like no one's listening. So as you read through the chapter for today, the basic tools and techniques for language teaching, what were the three main groups or ideas that you found outlined in this chapter? You can go ahead and get your book out if you want to, but you may or may not need it. Anybody, what was one of the main points that this chapter was talking about?
Techniques or activities.
Inductive and deductive.
Activities, what's specific though? There were three pretty large
Input.
Input. Okay. What were the three main points that this chapter was touching on though?
those and that students.
What?
Pairing and grouping students.
Pairing and grouping of students. Okay, so how do we pair and group our students? Yeah. Use of visuals. And there was one more.
Feedback to your classmates.
Feedback, teacher talk. Okay, so really this chapter was about those three main groups. And it spent some time looking at the basics of those and then specific examples of what it might look like in a classroom. So I just want to go through all of these things because I think now we're getting into the things that I think are a little more useful, hopefully. It's not as much theory as it is now we're really getting into here's what works in the classroom and why. Okay. So first we're going to look at structured and purposeful pairing and grouping, okay, and teacher talk and visuals. And I want you to think in your groups how these tools appear in your classroom. So you're going to do something called rally table, okay? Right now, I would like one person at your table to get out a blank piece of paper. Can I have the two of you go back with Jose Manuel, because it's going to be better if you have like at least 3 people.
I'll go there.
You're going to come here. Okay. All right. Okay? Yep. Come on up. Okay? You just need one blank piece of paper for your group. Okay? What you're going to do, this is a fast-paced activity, and I find that this one kind of ups the energy level. I want you to write down just a brief little description of how these tools appear in your classroom. So, how do you pair or group your students? What do you think about? What do you do? How does it work? How do you talk to your students? Do you do a warm-up? What kinds of questions do you ask? How do you give feedback? Do you use visuals? What do they look like? How does it work? Okay? And what you're going to do is in 5 minutes, you're going to try to get as many things on the paper as possible. Okay? So how it works is the person who has the paper writes one thing down very quickly and passes it to the person to their right. Verbalize it as you write so that the whole table can hear, because you want to try not to repeat information. Okay? Now, this is a competition. The group that writes down the most answers in this 5-minute time period, okay, will not have to read the chapters for homework. It is true. What? It is true. The group that writes down the most distinct individual answers in 5 minutes does not have to do the reading homework.
Oh.
Okay? Are you ready?
Yes.
On your marks. Get set. Go! Right and pass. Right and pass.
Just to give example here, yes?
A quick example. So just write down a couple words to explain the idea.
But I put only the technique I use, or I'll give only the technique? Just put only warm up. That's it?
Warm up how? But like, what do you do? What do you do?
Eu perguntei só colocar o armado, pelo menos o armado com. Tem que ser
What's the activity? The word expression. Examples, right? Examples, what you do. Sketch. ETCH. 2 minutes left. Go, 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 go. If I put that up, you can't see the clock. So I didn't. 30 seconds. No pressure. No pressure. I explain. 20. 1 more minute. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Drop your pencils. Drop your pencils. All right. Now, you may, if there is not a name on your paper, okay, you may pick your pencil back up to write only the name of one person in your group. I don't need all of them. Choose one. You have one more. Ready? Thank you.
I just want one more. We know it's illegal.
Okay. All right. So as I take a look at these and see what you guys had to say and what your ideas were, I want you to start thinking at your tables and discussing. So slow. What are the benefits of pairing and grouping students, and what are the challenges? Okay. So while I'm taking a look at these, so maybe 5 minutes, at your tables I want you to discuss what do you find beneficial about pairing and grouping students, and what do you think the problems sometimes are that arise when you attempt to pair and group your students. Got it? Discuss.
It's good because they help each other. Explain better than we talk. So sometimes you explain, they don't understand. It's a prayer. Ah, no, that's it. Okay. Because they talk.
Do you mean
no, I sometimes I ask them to do it immediately and they pair. Yes, they can. Okay, but I don't ask them to have to pair. I don't like to, talk more about other things than about exercise. Sometimes I ask assignments, research about this topic here in pairs. So you can go home and try with your friends to do it and give, but in class today. Start talking about something else. It's like this.
Maybe the suggestion.
The physical education teacher. Okay.
E o negócio não precisa mudar o nome, já tem.
All right, I'm going to have you wrap up, even if you're not finished. One more? Yeah.
No, because we are asking about the seat has a meaning because now we're going to answer. So lip sync means this.
Lip sync means to move your lips with the music, but not actually Anybody want to share some things that they think are beneficial about parent grouping students, or a practice that works for you when you're parent grouping? If it works, it works how? What do you do to make it work? Because it doesn't work if you just say, okay. I mean, sometimes it does. Rarely with the age group that you guys are teaching, can you just say, find a partner and do something.
No.
Right. So what do you have to do?
First of all, we have to have our activity explained.
Okay.
We need to arrive there with all the rules imposed by us, because otherwise we can lose the control.
Okay.
And the class becomes a mess.
So it has to almost be more planned when you're having group work in order to try to keep them on task. Okay, good. Anything else?
Not to let two grade students sit together. The main idea is to put one that has more difficult dealing or working with one that is better, so that one can help the other.
Sometimes. Now, what I would caution with doing that all the time is the person who is stronger can get frustrated. So it's, for me, beneficial to mix it up. So one day, if you have one weak student and one strong student, maybe the next day you do allow two stronger students to sit together, so that they don't always have to spend the time being the teacher, but they can maybe go a little bit more advanced. So just like with anything we've talked about here, mixing strategies is good. But yes, for many things, it's very helpful to have one student who is at a higher level than the other students. So
but it's not a simple thing to do, because when you have a crowd class, it's simpler to say, you read with the guy behind you or beside you or in front of you, because you cannot make them walk around.
So one of the challenges then might be space and numbers can make it difficult for you to purposefully pair students. And and one of the things that they point out in the textbook, one of the nice things about pair work is that it doesn't have to take a lot of pre-planning. You can just say, sitting with the person next to you, do this.
Yes.
Right? Okay, good. What else?
But sometimes you have this problem because they disturb the class when you do pair work, so group. Because they tend to talk aloud.
Okay.
So this is it's a problem. It's more than a class management we have to deal with.
And another thing is, I think that always there are some group without asking you, hey, please, and you go there and there, they're not satisfied.
Okay. So you pairs might have perhaps too many questions being asked at the same time, and it's hard for you to answer all of them. Yeah. Does anybody have a good strategy for managing that? Yeah.
Well, sometimes it works. But I think it has to be, the teaching has to be very well planned. Give them the instructions, as Manuela said, and then you have to give them the rules too. Okay? Because I explain the activity, I pair them, and then I say, okay, but if they start disturbing or talking about something else, I call their attention once. I call their attention twice. The third time, I say, you are out. And in case I say, okay, I don't give you a point because of this, and then next time, probably, if you don't behave, you won't take part in this activity. Sorry, it's not a very democratic, but sometimes it works. And just say, out, don't care.
Refer to me.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
But you know, and I hate to say it, sometimes there are times when we get on to some of the classes that do work, like that's maybe not the most teacher-oriented thing, but sometimes it's helpful for the rest of the
But
class.
sometimes I say, if you don't know how to choose your friends to work, so next time nobody will choose your friends. So just because of you, next class I will choose. So in the day I was.
So making them responsible. So that's a nice strategy. Is kind of making them accountable for their behavior. So I don't know if you heard what she was saying, but she said, okay, so when you choose your own partner, okay, if you cannot behave appropriately with this person, next time I'm going to tell you who you have to work with. So sometimes that helps for them because they prefer to work with their friends. It gives them the options.
Nicole, I had a doubt. What to do when a student refuses to work in pair?
It happens a lot.
Because they don't like the other person?
Yeah.
I have a lot of students who want to work alone. They like to work alone.
Sometimes they like to be
sometimes they don't like each other.
They have a bad experience with somebody.
Okay, sometimes they've had a bad experience, or they just prefer to work by themselves, or they don't like the other person. Okay, you know, and I think there might be, I mean, there's no like answer to solve all of the problems of the world.
But
right?
for example, I have two students that they are the different religion, or the other students are outgoing, and so it's hard for me because they don't want to stay with the other person to sit next to them.
I don't know. For some reason, what I find is if from the beginning, and it has to be from the very beginning, there just is no option. There is no option. The way you're going to pair is how you're going to pair. And whether that means you're sitting next to each other and just working independently, at least you're following what I asked you to do enough, okay, that it's not disrupting the rest of the group. So sometimes these procedural things can take a really long time to kick in and to make them work, especially if, some of the things I've heard from you guys is that it's a problem everywhere, like in every class. So even if you try to make them work effectively, they're probably or maybe are not doing it in other classes. But, you know, I always find that it's like, how do I explain this? Just making the expectation clear from the beginning, and just there is no alternative. Like, it's not acceptable for them to work by themselves. Even if they're just physically going to sit next to each other, it's like a step in the right direction. And two, especially with the comfort level, if a student has a legitimate reason not to work with someone, you know, I think we have to be sensitive to that because we don't want to put them in a situation where they feel threatened or dangerous. But not wanting to work with someone because they don't like them or they have religious differences or they, you know, live on, that's just not acceptable, you know. So when you're like thinking about that classroom environment, it's something that comes it's not an easy thing to make happen, right? And there's no single rule, and I'm not going to tell you that there is. But consistency, I think, can help making sure that you always follow through on making them do it. Because if they see an out, they're going to try to make it. Can you speak a little louder? Because I'm pretty sure nobody else can hear.
I like coming to class and in my first class, yes. So I come and say, hey, please, don't have, okay, this is my place. No, nothing like that. Try to be close to other people because they will have some new information for you. So this way, you avoid them to have groups. You prevent them from having groups. Yeah, and first come, first serve.
So you switch where they're sitting pretty frequently, okay?
Because if they come first, okay, I'm sitting here. Oh, that's my place. No, hey, did you come earlier?
So do your students just sit wherever they feel like it on a daily basis?
Yes, the first day, but there is some confusion. All the teachers that is their class, we make a map.
Okay.
So we separate those that came to start the class and put them in another place. So sometimes they try to trick us. No. Okay. We avoid them. Avoid them. With somebody that they usually don't like.
Okay, gotcha.
So they keep quiet.
Okay. So free seating unless there's a problem and then there's a sign. Okay. Anything else about pairing and grouping? Depends on the school. Is it the teacher's choice or does the school usually have a policy?
I work in 2 schools. In one, they have a map of the classroom, and it's the director's choice.
Okay.
She wanted that. And in the other one, they sit freely. If the teacher wants to do that, they do.
Okay.
But it's difficult because I try to do it in one group I have, but the other teachers don't do it. So when it comes to the second class, they spread.
Well, you can only control your world, right? So you can't control the other people's world.
I don't know if you know the protocol. I don't know. I'm going to translate this like it was in Portuguese. We call this master of class, for example. Masters of class. And they have 8 teachers, but they choose one. They vote to be the master, and then we do a map. And if my friend, another teacher wants to change the place, Renata, I'm going to change that guy. Is it okay for you? They ask me.
Okay.
Then I say okay.
So they're in the same seating arrangement for every class?
My city, my schools are like this.
Okay.
I'm master in 70 and the other school is 60.
Okay. So
just in one class I am.
I think one of the other things to maybe emphasize if you have someone who's reticent, like I don't want to work with this person because I don't like them, whatever. You don't have to marry this person. You don't have to live with them for the rest of your life. You just have to talk to them for 20 minutes. Grow up a little.
And then when we see the parents, we do this. The masters.
You have to see the call.
I know. And sometimes you're the one that you just want to.
I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to film the book. I'm going to send to you so you can have an idea what.
You know, and I was very fortunate. I had the same kind of students that you had, but we had a cap of only 15 students per classroom. So it's a lot easier to control these kinds of behaviors when you only have 15 students. And you guys are forced with, or you have such large classes that you have other problems happening. So moving, even though this is an interesting topic, is there anything else you want to share that you think has really worked about pairing and grouping?
Give points to teach. Points
for working well.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I do this.
There's also
to keep them quiet and to look forward to do the work.
If you do have a computer with a projector in your classroom, there's a website called Class Dojo. It is the best thing ever. You put in their names. I'll put it on the website. You put in their names, and if they're on task, you click a little button that says on task, and it gives them points, and you can see it all up on the screen. Awesome. So, and you can give them little icons so they look like little cartoon characters, and who's in the lead, who has the most points. It's really cool. So if you have students who like to see visual. Some teachers will put names up on the board either for positive or negative reinforcement, depending. But this is a more high-tech, interesting way to do that.
I put stars in the notebook and they ask me, where's my star?
So they like that kind of feedback. Okay, yeah, Class Dojo. I'll put that up. All right, next part. So we're going to do a little bit of a tea party style thing right now, which means you're just going to walk up or stand up and kind of walk around the room and circulate talking. If you are sitting down, I will immediately take points away from you.
Wow.
Maybe I'll put Class Dojo up to show it to you. But the first thing I want you to discuss, okay, is warm-ups. Why is it useful? Do you use them? You can share some kinds of warm-ups that you use. It's always good to hear other ideas. Okay, so stand up. And do not start out talking to the person next to you. You guys tend to talk to similar people all the time. So go find someone else and talk to them about warm-ups. from the chapter that you read?
No.
No. Okay. These are the way that we ask questions. Okay, so
I'm sure
It's around here.
So IRE is when you ask a question that only has one correct answer, and the discussion is then finished. Okay? IRF is the type of discussion where you ask a question, the student gives an answer, and you build on that to move the discussion forward. Okay? And also talk a little bit about how much time you think you spend talking in your class. How much time do you talk? How much time do the students talk? Ready? I'll give you 2 minutes for this one.
20.
Go. Because we kind of talked about that with this last one a little. Right now I want you to discuss, I think this is the last one, the subject of wait time. When I say wait time, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
What is it?
When you ask a question to a student, don't wait. You don't wait for his answer. You just you give the answer, and then he has no time to.
So give me the answer. So like the teacher that moved the Ferris wheel. Is this?
Yes, it's like the teacher in Ferris Bueller.
Yeah.
Except for in that case, he put everyone to sleep because he was bored or boring. You know, that was not. But they've shown that for people who are learning a second language especially, they need even more time after you ask a question in order to be able to respond. So with a new person, this should be your last one, I would like you to talk about how much wait time you feel you typically give. Usually we give less than we think we do. Do you feel that enough of your students usually answer your questions? Do you usually have to ask a follow-up question? Okay, so those sorts of things, all right? So this one's going to be a short one, just 1 minute again. All right, last one. Ready? Go.
Ready?
I'm getting wait time.
Practicing wait time.
This is another one. I don't know if you guys have ever seen this one, but sometimes you can do like, you know, just for your for everyone else. When you put your hand up, you stop talking. It's because I know, I'm sure most of you get tired of yelling over your students. So one of the things that I've done in here was just saying to a couple people near me, like, if you can hear me, say one, and then they'll say one, and then other people will be like, what's happening? And then I'll say, if you can hear me, say two, and then like half of the class will say two. So that's one way to not yell. If you teach them the hand thing at the beginning of the year, it actually does work pretty well. It just means when I put my hand in the air, I'm asking for silence, okay? You give me silence by also putting your hand in the air. But when you put your hand in the air, your mouth has to be closed. Okay, so finish up what you're saying and then put your hand up and then be quiet. So if you can teach them those kind of procedures, it just saves your voice a little bit, so you're not always screaming.
This is something I do. It works.
The hands, yeah.
It's like I'm asking permission to talk to them. It's polite too.
Okay, so they see it as a politeness that you're asking.
And they have to be polite with me.
Okay. I see some people do timeout. Okay. Do they notice when you're doing that?
Yes.
Good. Good. Use the timeout also. Okay. You know, we're in a lecture type of situation here where I'm doing a lot of the talking, which I don't like. I try to put it back on you as much as possible, which is why you probably notice a lot of focus group discussion. For several reasons, it exhausts me, and it makes you more prone to tuning out, in my opinion. So one of the things I was interested to hear from you was what percentage of the time you feel you spend talking. You think you're in control. Anybody want to throw out a percentage? How much of the time do you spend talking?
10 to 15 minutes only.
Of how much?
I have to give them activity needed.
Of 50 minutes?
15 minutes the most.
So approximately 10%.
Yeah.
Okay. 10%. Anybody else want to throw out a percentage? 20%.
Talking?
Yeah.
I talk about 60% of the time.
60% of the time.
Me too.
Teacher or the student?
Teacher.
Oh, yes. Teacher.
Yeah.
100%.
100%.
100% my students.
How about 50-50? 50-50?
It depends on the class. If I need to explain grammar for the first time, I speak more.
Okay.
But if the next class I have to review with a warm-up, they will basically produce.
Depends on whether it's a new concept or something that you're reviewing. Sure. Okay, good. All right. Did you have any questions about this section of the text? Okay, we pretty much just talked about all of those in the groups, and I think you've got a good handle on what they are. The last thing that they point to as being very beneficial for learning is the visual aids. Okay, so what types of visuals do you use in your classroom, and are there any constraints? And I'm just going to take answers here. Constraints mean, is there anything stopping you, like you don't have a projector or what have you? So what kinds of visuals do you use, and is there anything stopping you from using more visuals? Okay, anybody want to share? Flashcards.
Video clips.
Video clips.
Posters.
Magazines.
Newspapers.
Internet.
The internet. Anything else? Posters, yeah.
I make my students produce videos.
Your students make their own videos?
Yeah.
Okay, students make videos. Good. Anything else? Maps.
When you give a class using the PowerPoint, is it author? No, visual? You give?
It depends if it's, what this is here, no, not necessarily. Visual is like a picture or a video or some kind of image, but it can also be a way of visually organizing information. So a graphic organizer is also a visual. So spider maps,
Picture description.
picture descriptions, Venn diagrams.
Graphic?
Flyers?
Flyers.
Yeah, flyers. Flashcards. I think, okay. Drawings? Drawings, okay. Good. How do you feel that your students respond to those? Do you feel like they like activities with it? Okay. So I agree. I feel like it gives them for some reason, an additional connection to the material. It sort of allows them to understand it a little bit better. So as we go forward, we're going to start looking at, I think this is clear to everyone. Does anyone have questions about why visuals are important? No, right? That's pretty self-explanatory. Okay. So we're going to start talking a little bit about an author and researcher named Robert Marzano. And one of his books that we're going to look at is The Art and Science of Teaching. Okay. And we're also going to look at classroom strategies that work. So first, though, I want you to think a little bit about how would you define the word art? What is art? Expression.
Something that
Human expression.
changes my way of look for something.
Something that changes your outlook, your view of the world.
So maybe you can use a lot of words to
Creativity.
Creative. Yeah, good. Okay. What about the word science? How would you define the word science? Reality. Research. The opposite of art. Research. Studies. Methods. Huh? Study.
Curing.
Cure.
Yes. CURE, I think.
Like finding a cure for diseases.
Statistics.
Comparison statistics. Okay. So we have one of these sort of like creative, energetic sides, and then we have a more studious, research-oriented type of side. So why do you think someone might write a book about the art and science of teaching? How do you think teaching might be both an art and a science? Discuss at your table, and then each table is going to share their answer. How is teaching an art, and how is teaching a science? Depending on the students you're
Something related to art. Yes, I like to do so there are subjects
So when I was the same I taught in English. It was the same topic in the math. It was the same subject, the same thing.
Okay, I'm going to ask each group to just share one idea. Okay, so if you want to just discuss among yourselves very briefly what you would like to share with the group in terms of how you think teaching would be both in art and the science. And I'll ask each group to share one idea. Okay? Is anyone ready?
Okay.
Okay. Quiet please, because you're going to listen to this group first. Okay.
The science. Yes.
First, and I want to.
Right?
Science is more related.
Can you hear her?
No.
No.
Science is more related to the theory part, the structural part of teaching. Thank you. And art is how we are going to arouse the passion in the student. So art is how we are going to attract the students to be connected with the structure part, so they get involved in the
Okay,
class.
nice. So the science is the structure behind the getting them connected to the material. Good. Anybody else? Who's next? Yeah, in fact. Yes.
I think English teachers, we are all experts every time, you know, because you have to be happy, healthy, with a good voice in front of the class, you know, and sometimes you dance, you play, you teach the verbs, you know, it's
Step up the dance.
you have to make them laugh a little bit, and this is the art part of the teacher, and the science part, it's the, I think we are all linguists also, you know. It's the academic part is the science part that we have to teach them.
Okay, so you have this
No,
element
I
of
think it's
entertainment.
We mix art, especially language teachers.
Mhm.
We have to be actors.
Okay, so this acting entertainment part
Yeah.
that mixes together with the
academic part.
linguistics and the background knowledge. Okay. Good. Yes?
We could say that in art, we do it with pleasure. It's like a hobby. And the science, we have to prove. We could compare with theory and practice. The theory would be the science, and practice, art.
Okay, so we might compare the theory and practice to those two terms. That's a good way, interesting way to look at it.
But we were sharing here in our group that when we are preparing some activity, we must have this idea in mind as well, because some students feel better dealing with arts, and some of them feel better dealing with science. So to show them different kind of activities, so they both, all the students can take advantage from the activity.
Okay, so mixing up the kinds of activities to appeal to different kinds of thinkers and intelligence.
Sometimes we have this problem with the students that we, for example, I said to them that when I do something, when I plan something, I don't think in each student. I think it's a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So when I give them the instruction, I have sometimes spent time with one student, only few minutes or few seconds to explain something. But some students, like, we have to deal with this like psychological side, because we have to explain, like, take more than a minute to explain.
Mm-hmm.
So this part, I think this is hard.
So being able to relate to different kinds of personalities and students. Yeah, good rapport with students. Good. Yeah, that's definitely part of the art, is cultivating those relationships and making everyone feel heard, equally respected.
I think as an art, because I think teachers have to be very creative in order to choose different techniques, because sometimes we use one approach and that doesn't work. So you always have to be creating something new in order to reach the students, all right? And then a science, because I think, well, the subject you are gonna teach, the way you are gonna approach that topic in order for the students to understand. So I think you have to align the two things. Okay, to be creative, okay, to teach what you have to teach, okay, and to think about how you can help that student understand it better and more effectively.
Okay. It was interesting to me that when you were talking about the creativity part, though, it almost sounded like testing a hypothesis. You said, I try this, if it doesn't work, I go back and look at why, and I try something new. So even there, it's almost a little bit of blending both things together. Yeah. How about you?
We agree with her. We were talking about science. It's because we have to study, we have to research, we have to have techniques to teach. And the art part is our creativity. We have to be creative. We have to have the sensibility to reach students. It's not only the formal thing. We are dealing with people, with human beings. So.
Sensitivity?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Did I hear from the back? No?
Some students in Brazil say that some teachers know the content, but they don't know how to pass the content for them. Okay, to explain the syllables. Okay, but it's interesting because some teachers know how to teach, explain, but he's not or she's not so academic. And some students perceive it.
Yeah. So you do have. It's pretty. It's great if you have someone who is very good at both things, but yeah, some teachers are much better at the interpersonal types of relations, and others have a better handle on the content. And I'm sure you guys would probably identify with one or the other of those. It's pretty rare that people feel equally strong in both. Okay, good. In the back?
Like science, lesson is variable. We have to test again. And part of the creativity, we have to create all the time. It goes wrong, I create it at the time.
Okay, so
we have to create.
A lot of variables happening. There's lots of testing of what's going to work and what isn't. Good. Did I hear from you? Yes. Okay. Anybody else want to add anything about that before we move on? So,
I think it would be something like work and play.
Work and play. Maybe. It depends. I think we're all, as language teachers, we tend to be more creative types and less scientific types. Scientists would probably say science is the fun part and art is the work. So it just depends on your point of view, I think. But the Art and Science of Teaching framework actually has a lot in it. Robert Marzano, who is the man who put this together, and these were things that we don't talk about this here at the ELI at all. No one knows who this guy is. This is something that we talked about all the time when I taught middle school and public school. So he's much more well known in K through 12 education, which is where many of you are. So the research that he does is on teaching strategies, effective feedback, vocabulary, and technology. A lot of those things that were in the chapter that you just read. There is some overlap, but there's a lot of extra stuff too. So we're going to look at the Art and Science of Teaching framework, and you're going to put it together like a puzzle using your reasoning. So this is what the blank one looks like. He says that there are 4 different domains, okay, to be an effective teacher. There are 4 separate areas, okay? The areas are, hold on. strategies and behaviors. Okay. Planning and preparing, so what do you do before class to get ready? Reflecting, so what do you do after class? And collegiality and professionalism, so how do you interact with others? So basically it's before, during, and after class, okay, and then working with others, all right? But what I want you to do is look at all the little pieces that go underneath of that and see if you can put them together in an order that makes sense. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. Can I collapse this group? Can the three of you join these three? Okay. You're going to receive an envelope. Okay. Inside the envelope are puzzle pieces that are the segments and discussion questions. Okay. I want you to put them in what you believe the order to be. Okay. So how do you think these things go together? Okay. You're probably going to need some empty space in the middle of the table. Sorry. That's the problem with standing on the chair. Do you want a different chair? No. Okay. Okay, so there are 4 domains, and I've shown you how many things go under each domain. See if you can figure out what those were. You can steal one. See if you can convince someone to come over. So this is like the blank map, so you can see how many should be under each domain. Okay, so you don't have to just blindly guess. You know how many, but you don't know which ones go where. Okay, so you can see up here, there are 4 domains and how many separate and separate. Just so that you're not blindly guessing. This is like the blind one. So upstairs should be your template. There are 4 domains and it should be so that the domain should shadow.
Address involving routine events.
No.
This one I don't know.
Okay, you've got 4 domains.
Forgot this one.
Oh, like you're doing it right now, like right then. So the student does something in class and reacts to it immediately, not something you just plan or you have to like work with the student right then.
Eu acho que esse aqui é o Wii, esse curso já para fora. Eu acho que esse aqui é o Wii, curso da performance. Ou é Reflex?
Ah, tá. Foi a função. Eles usam mesmo a design practice.
Planning and prepare to produce a resource and technology.
So you have to organize like that. Once a year, once a month. 3
Comes from the word colleague. Do you know what a colleague is? Okay. So it's like working with students. It's working with the other teachers. Sometimes, or it could be all the English teachers. It doesn't really matter. It's just what it's the same. However,